Chapter 2 3 The candle was small, the darkness vast, just about to swallow her. She turned around to view the cell, the flame flickering, her shadow dancing like a wicked beast. She tried to lull her heart and ease her thoughts. This wasn't real. Her mind was playing tricks on her. She closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and when she opened them, nothing had changed. Everywhere she looked, straw, straw, straw. And the spinning wheel. She was able to spin, certainly, that wasn't the problem. Had the king asked her to spin plain thread, she would have done so happily, but to spin straw, something so easily acquired from a field, to gold, the very meaning of fortune, was impossible. What had her father been thinking? Had he bragged about her differently, that she could bake the most delicious cake? She would have smiled and proven her handicraft. Sighing, she crouched, her lips twitching in several directions, undecided whether to laugh or burst into tears. The worst thing was, she was in a dungeon. No chamber had been prepared for her. There were shackles on the wall, some dried fluid attached to it. If this was the king's idea of proper decoration, he certainly wasn't a good interior designer. Then again, she imagined the environment was supposed to motivate her to succeed. If she failed to spin gold, it was going to be her body decomposing in the cell. With shaking hands, she tried her best to keep the wax from spilling on her fingers. She picked a spot on the floor and brushed away the straw before placing the candle on the cold and uneven stone. For many moments, she stared into the fire. What was she to do? If she didn't spin all of the straw to gold by morning, her father and she were to dangle from the noose. An example of faulty defiance to the land. Maybe, she thought, she deserved it. She hadn't denied the magical ability. If she truly possessed such a trait and kept it to herself, she would be labeled as egoistic and greedy. Yet the circumstances and how she lived beg to differ. If she had shouted out that her father told a lie, he'd die and she'd live. Gasping in a large breath as if surfacing from a deep dive, she looked up from her knees to the spinning wheel. She could try. There always was a chance. She swallowed, trying to flush away her problems with it. In that moment, the flame danced, wild and furious. Her hair twirled over her head. She shoved her hair down, and when she heard rustling, shrieked and leapt to her feet. Her quick move was nothing of style. She stumbled over the candle, extinguished it, spilled hot wax over her leg. With a hand to her leg, she spun around. The rustling grew louder, and with it, her breathing. She stopped. Strange light elevated from a pile of straw, illuminating the room all around. At the following rustle, she clasped her hands over her mouth. First slim fingers, then a hand, then another, and then a whole figure in a cloak. From the broadness of the shoulders, she figured it a man. The hood was loose and big, probably meant to conceal the person's identity. She didn't recognize any features, less see the face. She focused on the figure and wondered about his intentions. It was useless. She couldn't detect anything that could give him away. When he stood by the spinning wheel, he lifted his hands, slim fingers peeking from the cloak, and pushed off his hood. What she saw left her speechless. He took his time to look at her, and she could only stare at the glaring green in his eyes. He pulled a muscle in his lip to disgruntle the cell, then ran both of his hands along his jaw, back to his neck. With a swift move, he brought all of his hair to show. It was long and white. The roots were dark, and so were the tips of his hair. He made a sound of disdain, then extended a hand for her. "Don't cry," he said, his bizarre eyes amiable, his voice peace itself. She swallowed the spit that had gathered in her mouth, wiped at the side of her face. Hesitantly, she laid her hand in his. He pulled her up, reaching another hand to hold her waist as he recognized her wincing. "Are you hurt?" She felt her face warm up and shook it either way. It seemed her unsaid words meant little because he bent a knee and slid smooth fingers about her leg, just around her drying wax. Embarrassed by the now intense color on her cheeks, she was too startled to protest. Any man she would have told off, but his movements were slow and steady. When he peeled the wax off her leg, her skin gave shy tweaks of resistance. "What's your name?" he asked, face low and hidden. "Diane." He reacted to her name and raised his face. Long bangs ran over his nose, the tips of it moss green. Between those bangs and underneath shorter strands, his eyes were open and warm. He was measuring her as if to conclude if name and holder matched. Apparently, it did, and he pulled the last blotch of wax off of her. Before she had any chance to ask his name, he had a jar in his hand. He dipped 2 fingers in and moved careful circles about her minor injury. Biting her lip to suppress pain she suspected, she watched. He stored the jar in his cloak before getting up. The procedure hadn't hurt at all, and his height beat hers easily. "Why were you crying?" She burst into tears. She heard him hush and felt his arms wrap around her. His voice was soothing. It was like he was telling her everything would be all right, and she believed him. She clutched at his cloak, nose wet and sniveling. Spinning straw to gold, her knees gave in, but her hands wouldn't. With her sinking, his cloak shifted, and although blurred her vision was, she saw his chest. She swallowed, mesmerized by the green lines all over it. What was... He snapped his fingers, drawing her attention. Face heating, she looked up and saw him look down, all of him gentle. "Would you like to tell me your worries?" he asked, setting his cloak back in place, hiding whatever marks decorated his body. She closed her eyes, inhaled, and smelled sweet flowers. She wanted to tell him everything. She began with a choke. The king ordered me to spin straw to gold." "Who would tell such a thing?" he asked, his tone rising charitable concern. Driving a hand to her face, she rubbed at the tear-striped cheek. "I don't know, and I don't know how to spin straw to gold. If the king finds me unable to perform this task, my father and we will both—" He embraced her again, and she leaned her cheek against his covered chest to hear a low and pondering sink through it. "What will you give me," he said, "if I do it for you?" Blinking back oncoming tears, she met his eyes, earnest and fond. "You can do that?" He smiled. "I think I should be able to handle such a simple task." Her eyes widened. He could? Who was he? What was he? How could he possibly know? How you... Adding a gentle laugh to her confusion, he pushed her away with such care she didn't feel rejected. "Now, what do you have to offer me?" This mysterious man was serious. And what other option did she have? She glanced down at herself. Never had she owned much, and then she spotted it. "Here!" She removed the payment from her fingers. "My mother's ring." Without much consideration, he eased her small palm, subtracting the item. "That will do." It vanished somewhere in his cloak. He swung himself on the low stool. Running a finger along the wheel, he set it in motion. "Don't you want to sleep? You seem exhausted." Embarrassed, she flung a hand to her cheek, testing its heat. He went with his own finger beneath his eye, beneath those dark lower lashes. Understanding without words, she rubbed at the spot on her own skin he pointed at. How awkward. She already had circles under her eyes. "It won't go away like that," he said. Well, how am I supposed to lose it?" "Sleep." Bringing a finger to her chin, she considered it. Sleep sounded tempting. This whole perturbed day had brought her to a tired conclusion. There was a chance that all of this was nothing but a bad dream. On the other hand, If all of this was real, this man was truly interesting. Perhaps he wanted her to sleep so she wouldn't see him spin straw to gold. The more she thought about it, the more the desire to see it grew. "You can watch me," he said, grabbing a handful of straw. She did as he said and sat down on a pile of straw. With the brief distraction of sitting down, he had the first shining string. She almost fell over in shock. "How?" He wrapped the golden string around her pointing finger. "It's a secret." She nodded, pressing her lips together. He could spin straw to gold. It was real. He could do it, but who would be able to do it? Who was he? Sometimes she watched his hands, other times his concentrated face. His movements were even, aware of everything he did, as well as his surroundings. "What is it?" he asked, eyes on the spinning wheel. Diane was close to dropping the freshly produced gold. "May I ask you some questions?" The wheel creaked. He glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. The green in it glowed. She swore she saw it liquefy and drip from his iris over his black lashes to run down his cheek, leaving a bright line. "Why?" Diane blinked. The green line was gone. Blinking a few more times, she wondered if exhaustion made her hallucinate. "I'm curious, and I want to know more about the man who saved my life." She hoped to convince him with a smile. He sighed, closing his eyes. "I give you 15 questions. Starting now?" 14. That's unfair." "We only have until sunrise." His fingers continued to weave magic. "Begin." She sat up. "Who are you?" "None of your concern." Shoving a pouting lip forward, she crossed her arms. The gold was increasing, and she wrapped it around her arm. Then, from the side of his head, something sharp protruded in the color of his skin tone. His ear? "You're human?" He kept himself busy. "I am the lord of the forest." Her eyebrows jumped up. "You're a lord?" "Yes." He kept his hands busy on the wheel, perpetual in motion. "Although the lords in your world, as I may say, differ from the title I bear. I need no gold nor castles." She had been right. This man was interesting. Very interesting. How many more questions did she have left? She glanced up at the ceiling and stopped counting. The lights in the air. It couldn't be. If his words were true, then this could be, too. Are those fireflies? First, he turned to her, then his friends. Yes. Amazed, she spun her head, this time in delight. There were so many, a chain of dancing lights. Their lucid bodies lit the room and made the gold appear even more radiant. Bathing in the fascination, she recognized her hair join the play and sent a happy grin at the man. He allowed her to marvel at the display. "You have 9 questions left." "This is—" She made a gesture to grab one. "How do you tell them to come with you?" Slightly puzzled, he raised an eyebrow. "I ask them." Diane whipped her head to face him. "They understand our language?" "They understand me," he said. Eager to hear more, she leaned forward. "Do you speak our language to them or theirs? Why is this so important?" Her childish expression fell. I just wanted to know." Besides the old, creaking spinning wheel working, the room muted. A handful of fireflies came to surround her. She gave them a weak smile. "Allow me to ask you a question." The fireflies floated above her head. Yes?" "What is your favorite flower?" "My favorite flower?" "Yes," he answered. "Everybody has one." "Oh." Feeling herself flush, she curled a finger at her lip and nibbled on the skin. I like those yellow tulips." She peeked at him. He was spinning, as he had before. His straight back had slacked for a second. "What is your favorite flower?" He glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. Her hair was splayed around her shoulders, front and back. In this sorcerer's light, it was difficult to tell apart her hair from all that gold. I don't have a favorite flower, he said. Before she wasted a limited question, he added, every flower is beautiful. Would I choose one above the other and dedicate all my time to only that one? The others will wilt. She assumed if he really was the Lord of the Forest, he had to love all plants equally. Favoring one was the hobby of a gardener. How many more questions do I have left? One. Already? His lips waxed into a crescent. Was that a question? No! Putting another handful of straw along the wheel, he said, ask. What's your name? The wheel stopped with an abrupt creak, and the green in his eyes expanded. It was so luminous it burned, poured over the fence of his eyes. She jolted up, spun around, body cold. Light seeped through the threshold of the door. She turned to the spinning wheel, the stool, empty. All that was left were strings and spindles of gold. Why, wasn't that an exciting night? Someone said. Diane collapsed. If she was caught or free to hit her head on the stony ground, she didn't know.